Who are we? Are you sure you want to know? I suspect we'll find the answer to that question a bit more than usual this episode, as we dive into our own memories and personal experiences growing up with Raimi's Spider-Man movies, as well as our recollections of the ancillary materials flooding our senses at the time as well.
These are our personal stories with the Trilogy, and I'm sure these stories of our lives will be perfectly safe for the faint of heart.
I'm sure. But before we get into that, these weirdos all gotta have a name now, and I'm Peter.
And I'm Sean, and this is So Much to Tell, a Raimi Spider-Man podcast. The Raimi trilogy is often talked about in relation to the nostalgia that people feel for it, and today, we're leaping right into that.
We're leaping right into that now. Sean, I want to start with our perceptions of Spider-Man before we saw the movies. Because I know for me personally, Spider-Man wasn't really on my radar so much. My pop culture world at the time, pre-Raimi Spider-Man, was mostly Star Wars was my big obsession, my big cultural touchstone, along with SpongeBob as well. Which is maybe more of a cultural touchstone now than it even was then with all the memes.
I would say so.
But that was pretty much my pop culture world at the time.
Yeah, I would say mine was similar. I think I when I was a young kid, I definitely was obsessed with Thomas the Tank Engine, and I watched those videos and those tapes just ad nauseum over and over again. I also loved the Toy Story movies when I was a kid. I remember Toy Story 2 in particular was a big thing for me. I had a lot of the toys. I had the video games. I had the movie on VHS. I mean, I was obsessed with that movie. We had the soundtrack CDs. We listened to them in the car. That was like my first big movie that I remember really engaging with the merchandise and the movie itself, and just being really excited for it. So I would say Toy Story 2. So like 1999, 2000, that era was when that was like my first experience just really engaging and being excited about a movie to that level.
Oh yeah, I just want it to be known that I'm not heartless. I was a big fan of the Toy Story movies as well at that time.
Oh, of course.
We probably had the same. Did you have the Woody's Roundup soundtrack?
Oh,
is that what you were referring to?
Yes, that was one of them. We took a lot of road trips in those days up to visit our relatives in Michigan, so we listened to those tapes and those CDs in the car over and over again. And so I have a lot of memories of Toy Story 2. When I think about that time of my life, Toy Story 2 was a big part of it, right around the turn of the millennium. Like for me personally, that was my first real experience, like really being excited and engaging with a movie in a very, meaningful way for me, with the toys, the video games, all the spin-off materials, which, that definitely, for me at least, presaged a lot of what I would feel and do with the Spider-Man movies as well, in the years to come.
Mm-hmm. So that was the canvas that Spider-Man would end up being printed on for us.
Exactly. I think we were both fortunate. You and I, we're both around the same age. We grew up in a time when we had movies, around the turn of the millennium that had all these great merchandising and tie-ins. Like Star Wars, Phantom Menace was big around that time.
Oh,
Toy Story 2. They all had so many toys and video games, all these promotional materials, and we just we ate that stuff up. And I think it really primed us to respond to Spider-Man in the same way.
Yeah, and we'll get into all the promotional material. That was a cool time.
Yeah, for sure.
So Spider-Man himself, then, what did you know about Spider-Man? Because I was kind of scared of Spider-Man at the time. Like at the time, the incumbent logo for the Spider-Man font was that like thin, sinewy, drippy, like jagged yellow and red font, bloody red, it's a Spider-Man. And at the time when I looked at that, I was like, holy cow, that looks scary. I'm like, it looked like it was supposed to be like the Spider-Man. It looked scary. And so being a kid that was scared of a lot of things, I was like, oh, okay, Spider-Man's terrifying. Gotcha. Good to know. Okay. And I pretty much just avoided Spider-Man in my youngest years.
I honestly couldn't tell you that my first memory of ever hearing the term Spider-Man. I know what font you're talking about. It's actually printed on the Spider-Man 2000 video game that they made for the PlayStation and N64. I honestly couldn't tell you what my first interaction with Spider-Man was in any form. It might have been the first Raimi movie. It might have been seeing the Amazing Spider-Man comic in the Sunday paper. It might have been hearing my dad sing the Spider-Man song. I don't know. I really could not tell you for sure when I first heard about Spider-Man in any form. So it could have been any one of those
so
things.
Then when did you like first experience Raimi's Spider-Man then? Like how did that end up coming into your worldview.
Yeah, I mean, I actually saw the first movie in theaters. I remember in school at the time, the kids I used to hang out with, I haven't really kept in touch with them, but I remember one of them was like really excited for this Spider-Man movie. And, it was like May of 2002, whenever it came out. And I just remember he invited me and a few other people to go see it with him, and his mom who drove us there. But I just remember we went to the movie theater and we saw the movie. And I don't remember anything about the experience at the theater, but I do know that we saw the movie and we were actually in the, at recess the next week at school, we were playing games based on the movie. Like one of them was Spider-Man, one of them was Green Goblin. I was, some sort of civilian bystander usually that ended up getting hurt by the Goblin.
Kicked into the light pole.
Yeah, that says more about my place in that group's hierarchy than anything else. But yeah, we were playing.
Oh, dang.
Yeah, we were playing the movie out ourselves in the schoolyard there. We were definitely, it was definitely something we seemed to really enjoy. I mean, all the action, that was, I think, as a young boy, that's kind of what you're most drawn to. You're drawn to the action, the fights. That's what you really remember from the movie, and that's what we reenacted in the schoolyard there. And I know, people had, merchandise. I think I went to birthday parties and must have gotten. That's where I got like Spider-Man, Raimi movie playing cards as like party favors. So I think
cool.
I definitely would say like I think there's a good chance that my first exposure to the movies was like seeing the first movie in theaters and then sort of reenacting that, role playing that at school in those days. So, and I actually kind of remember being a little bit upset that I didn't get to be like Spider-Man or the Goblin because I was shoehorned into being one of the civilians that was collateral damage to one of their battles.
Yeah, that's pretty lame.
So yeah, well that dynamic, I was definitely like the lowest person. I was definitely a second class citizen within that group. So but yeah, I just remember we were. That was all we did for like a while. We just were reenacting these battles. And I actually remember the one kid who played the Goblin because I remember him saying the term impressive when he pretended to like fight us and, push us away. So, but in hindsight, I'm glad that I saw that movie because it really did, change the trajectory, changed a lot of things for me in terms of my pop culture tastes and, led me to where we are today.
Yeah, I mean, I don't say this very often, but, thank goodness for peer pressure.
This kid was a bit of a bully, but this was one thing that I'm glad I got bullied into.
Well, dang.
So, no, I mean, it's, it is what it is. I mean, we
have a direct line from that back then to our podcast right here, right now. So that's interesting.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, well, peer pressure or no, I'm glad you went.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I don't think I was aware of like the trailers at the time. At least I don't remember. And if I do, I might just be fabricating those memories because like I've certainly seen them since. I'm well familiar with like the the curves hell above the water in the trailers that they had. Go for the ultimate spin. I mean, I've seen them since, but I don't think I remember seeing them at the time. But what I do remember vividly is in middle school, we would have to like move around to different desks for different classes and things. And someone had left out this like junior novelization of the Spider-Man film, and I remember being like drawn to it and probably, crossing some sort of personal boundary. I couldn't help but pick it up and flip through it. And, there's like 8 pages of like color photographs for the movie in the middle of the book. And I was like, this looks pretty cool.
Yeah.
At the same time though, like it seemed, maybe because of my pre-existing thoughts towards Spider-Man, it seemed like a little bit like darker and more grown up than I thought was appropriate for me. Again, remember, I was quite the scaredy cat of a child. And yet maybe that's part of why I was pulled into it. It was like, oh, this is some mysterious, grown up serious stuff here. And so yeah, I was fascinated from seeing that book. As for me though, my dark regret of my past is actually not ending up seeing any of the movies in theaters. Because like I said, I was just too much of a scaredy cat. I thought they were a little bit darker and more grown up than they were. But at the same time, I was also just kind of like jittery about seeing any movie in theaters at the time. Like even when I saw The Incredibles as a kid, I think that was 2004. Like I had to like excuse myself from the theater during the scene when like Syndrome's like bombing Helen and the kids in the plane. It just got too overwhelming for me. That's how I was with movies back then. It's like, this is too much. I'm out.
It's a very intense movie though. I mean, I actually rewatched The Incredibles not too long ago, and it's a pretty. I mean, The Incredibles can get really twisted.
My childhood low threshold for intensity notwithstanding, it's a great movie.
I think it's an excellent and well-made movie, but I can definitely understand some of the scenes just being really scary and intense, and wanting to not have to watch that because it's just too uncomfortable.
Yeah, so I mean, just to defend my own, decision at the time, not to see any of these movies, which is a shame. I wish I had. I hope I still can. I hope they re-release them at some point or something so I can see them on a big screen. But even then, when Spider-Man 2 came out, I vividly remember that trailer. I remember seeing, like, Harry pulling out the dagger and being like, oh, no, yeah, this is definitely not for kids. Right, totally. And then with, again, even with Spider-Man 3, I was obviously, significantly older by that point. But even then, I
would have been like 13 or 14 around that time.
I guess. But like even then, I was like, when Venom leaps at the camera, with the big jagged teeth, I was like, well, I guess I'm not seeing this one either. Which is a shame. By that time, I was really torn because I did really want to see Spider-Man 3, but it just looked surprisingly intense from the trailer. I mean, for what it's worth, I did end up seeing The Amazing Spider-Man in theaters. Got over my issues by that point. I think I even kept my 3D glasses from The Amazing Spider-Man somewhere.
I did not even know they had 3D glasses for that movie.
I'm surprised by how many things I saw in 3D. But this is not an Amazing Spider-Man podcast. So then, my first experience seeing the movies then would be like sneaking bits of it when it came on TV, again, because I thought it was kind of more grown up for me, or on DVD and watching it.
For sure. I mean,
religiously.
Absolutely. I mean, I think the same thing happened for me. I know I saw the first movie in theaters. I don't recall specifically seeing the second or third one in the movie theaters. I might have, but I honestly don't remember either way. But I do remember getting the DVDs for Christmas a couple of years. The one for Spider-Man 2. I think it was like from some sort of special Toys R Us, package. Maybe it came with a toy or something, but I know it had like a Toys R Us sticker on the cover. And then I also remember getting Spider-Man 3, or maybe that was the one that had Toys R Us. But either way, I know I got those for DVD. And I remember watching them on DVD quite a few times when I was younger. They were always, highlights of my DVD collection, which was mainly like seasons of different sitcoms. But I was always very proud of my Spider-Man DVD collection.
Yeah.
And I remember actually watching the first movie on DVD as well, because I remember watching a lot. It had so many bonus features.
Oh, yeah.
It had like a little making of documentary. There was like a documentary about all the hoopla surrounding the movie's premiere on the big screen. They had a little featurette about the video game and like the first 3 levels. They gave you some tips for how to beat those levels. I mean, they had a whole bunch of bonus features, which was really cool.
Yeah.
And I remember spending a lot of time watching the DVD. It was actually 2 DVDs. It was one was the movie and a little bit of bonus content, and the other DVD was just entirely bonus content. I just remember watching that a lot as a kid.
Goblin's Lair. I seem to recall it being labeled.
Exactly. Yeah, because the first DVD it had like Spider-Man on it, but then the second DVD was Goblin. So I just remember, and that was back in the days. Just as another side note, how things have changed. But that was back in the days whenever you had a choice between full screen and widescreen DVDs. And I remember we always had to pick full screen because that's just what our TVs were at our house. So I remember, I had the full screen version of the first movie. I think I had the widescreen for the other two.
You had a full screen version of the DVD?
Yeah, the movie. Yeah, I had the first movie on DVD, but it was full screen edition. Yeah,
because I know I've seen like full screen and widescreen VHS, but that's interesting.
Yeah, in fact, I'm holding in my hand right now my Spider-Man 1 DVD, but it is a full screen special edition for Spider-Man 1.
Yeah, that looks remarkably like mine, except mine says widescreen.
And actually, it turns out I had the full screen version of Spider-Man 2 as well.
But like mine's in a set, and so I'm sure when you buy the box set, I'm sure. They don't give you the option anymore. I'm sure they're all full screen. I mean, I say full screen, I meant widescreen.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. No, like I'll bet you if you buy them all together, you get one or the other. But I know I got these piecemeal one at a time over the years. But yeah, here's my Spider-Man 3 DVD. This was the one that had the Toys R Us sticker, by the way. It was saying that I could get a free Spider-Man web crawler, which I don't think I ever redeemed that, but and certainly I don't think I can now. But
Sean, you should have. Yeah, but like our Spider-Man 1s are indistinguishable, except for mine says widescreen, yours says full screen.
Yep.
So I didn't know they had... Oh, wait, they're not indistinguishable. We've got different covers.
Yeah, you're right. Yours is like crawling up the side of the building. Mine is like mid-web swing.
Interesting. Yeah, because I see the back appears indistinguishable.
Yeah.
With Peter and MJ making out in the rain. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. But yeah, this was probably my favorite of the 3, honestly. Like I watched all of the bonus features here multiple times. I don't know why. I just thought that was so interesting.
Yeah, it is awesome how much they packed it with bonus features.
I mean, and that's what I mean. I think that's part of the reason, one of the reasons why I started to love these movies so much, because
Yeah, you could really connect with it. It was
like
awesome.
so cool to see the art, well, frankly, I think what I loved the most was the video game strategy guide that they put on disc 2. I think that was one of my favorites. That was because I was trying to beat the game. It was nice to have, straight from the horse's mouth, get a little bit of advice on that.
Yeah, well then I also had the Spider-Man 2.1 disc, which I loved as well. Watching the deleted scenes, all the bonus content. I remember watching a lot of it with my granddad. I remember, 2.1 had like this pop-up trivia, which was kind of weird, but it was cool. And I remember being just absolutely enthralled with the Spider-Man 3 teaser material on the 2.1 disc as well.
It's funny because I'm looking at my Spider-Man 3 DVD right now, and they only have a couple of special features for this one. They have filmmaker and cast commentary, bloopers, Snow Patrol music video, and photo gallery. And that's it. Those are the only 4 special features they have on Spider-Man 3. Spider-Man 2, on the other hand, like just not 2.1, but just 2, says right here with an extra sticker on the front, over 10 hours of exclusive bonus content. And wow, they have like a 12-part documentary about the making of the movie, a special look at Doc Ock, the women of Spider-Man. They have all sorts of cool stuff here. They have like another behind-the-scenes look at the video game, commentary, webisodes. I mean, they've got a whole bunch of stuff on the second movie's DVD.
The version that we have, the Spider-Man 3 DVD that we have, that's the standard single disc version. I don't know why, but the first 2 DVDs were packaged exclusively as 2 disc sets with the special features. For whatever reason, the third movie they sold it as both a single disc and the 2 disc set. So that's the version we have with a lot less bonus features, but what's lame is apparently that's the version they included on the DVD box set, which is what I have. That's super disappointing. However, I have here a DVD that's exclusively Spider-Man 3 bonus content. I got this a couple years ago used, so I don't know in what capacity this was, but it does have a lot more behind the scenes.
Yeah, that's a pretty long list, but I don't know. Maybe that was released in a different market.
Yeah, I don't know, but the one that I originally had, Spider-Man 3, it was very disappointing, yeah.
Yeah, this one only has, as I said, commentary, bloopers, music video, and photo gallery. Nothing about the video game, nothing about the making of the movie.
Who the heck wants a photo gallery?
Yeah, that's a pretty...
Come on.
I don't know. I think like if you're going to go to the trouble of putting in a bonus feature, make it something cool.
Yeah.
Don't make it just something kind of lazy and thrown in there at the last minute, it would seem. It just really put some effort into it. If you're going to go through the trouble of putting an extra feature on there, make it something really special. But
well, Sean, speaking of being lazy, we'll talk more about our memories of the merchandising and the marketing in a little bit, but right now, we need to determine whether we are brilliant or lazy.
Yeah, I'm ready. Fire away. I'm ready to prove my worth here.
All right, now, because this episode is all about our personal experiences with the Raimi Spider-Man trilogy, you may know the answer to this question, if only because you were there for this.
Okay.
But how many Spider-Man movies did we watch freshman year of college?
I want to say just the first movie. I remember we watched that first movie together in your room, and I remember we watched that together at your computer desk. Because I remember we watched Spider-Man 2 when you were living in the different dorm elsewhere on campus, and that would have been another year. But I do remember watching that very first movie together in your room. So I want to say just the first movie.
I want to say you're right. I want to say that is the true answer. We had big plans to marathon them all, but planning was not a major at our university. Freshman year, we could only get through the first one, which we rewatched sophomore year before continuing on to the other ones. But we were just busy. We were busy guys.
We were. I will say, though, that I think one of the things that, looking back, that really drew us together as far as Spider-Man goes was that freshman year, we were both playing Spider-Man games on our Game Boys at the same time. There was that one memorable night where we were sort of playing babysitter to an inebriated partygoer from somewhere else.
Yeah, a lot of shenanigans that night.
No, but I'm just saying that I think that was one of the things I remember freshman year about Spider-Man that really
That's a great follow-up question, Sean. What games were we playing on our Game Boys?
Oh boy.
At 2 a.m. that night in the common room with all the shenanigans.
Well, I was playing Spider-Man 2, The Sinister Six for the Game Boy Color.
Okay, I'm glad you remember because I wasn't completely sure.
Well, I remember very well. It was Spider-Man 2: The Sinister Six for the Game Boy Color.
Right, which is basically the sequel to the Spider-Man 2000 game.
Yes.
For the N64.
And they also had the Spider-Man 1 for the Game Boy Color as well. I know the Game Boy versions are always a little bit different, but that might have been another early exposure to Spider-Man. I don't remember when I played that game as a kid, but I know I played that game at some point and I really enjoyed it, and that was something else that really got me excited and into Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I just can't tell you if it was before or after I saw the Raimi movie.
All right, enough stalling. What game was I playing?
You were playing... I don't remember the name, but I know it was like the European version because it was in French.
Yeah.
And I was called upon to translate some of the words for you.
Yeah.
I know it was on the Game Boy Advance or Advance SP. I don't remember the name of the game itself or what it was called in the US, but I remember...
it was Ultimate Spider-Man, which I had accidentally picked up the international version, and I was trying to get you, with all your French expertise, to help me figure out what was going on in the story. Good times, good times.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I know I knew some of the words in the French version, but there were tons that were outside of my purview there. But I remember, you were playing that, and I was playing my Game Boy Color game, and that was something we really bonded over. That was Spider-Man related, but not quite Raimi movie related directly. It all fit into this idea that we both love Spider-Man, and we're expressing that in a number of different ways. I don't remember how we found
that out. I don't remember how we figured out that we both loved Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies.
I wish I could remember as well. It might have been something we just talked about at some point. I don't know. For whatever reason, I'm glad we stumbled onto that little bit of trivia about each other.
Yeah, no doubt.
It's been so rewarding for all these years.
So
the years do fly by. That's for sure.
Yeah, the years start coming and they don't stop coming. I tell you,
they don't stop coming and they don't stop coming. Well, speaking of songs that are notable for their involvement in other blockbuster movies.
Oh boy. All right, hit me.
So yeah, my question for you is not about our personal memories per se. It's more so about what else was going on in the cinematic world at the time.
Okay.
Because as we all know, Spider-Man 1 was released in May of 2002. But that movie did not get released in a vacuum. There were other blockbuster movies that came out in 2002. Some of which I'm sure you saw in theaters or were at least aware of them being in theaters. So my question to you is, true or false? Spider-Man was the highest grossing film of 2002.
Oh, man. Well, I would almost say yes, but I know Attack of the Clones was 2002 as well. So I find it hard to believe that Spider-Man was able to beat Star Wars. So I'm going to say no.
Okay, you are correct. Now, I'll give you bonus points if you could tell me what was the highest grossing movie that year and what number Spider-Man was.
Well, I'm going to have to assume it was Attack of the Clones, and I'll say Spider-Man was number 2.
That's incorrect, but you're pretty close. And I think you'll be surprised at what I'm about to tell you here. But the number one grossing movie of 2002 was neither Spider-Man nor Star Wars. It was actually Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers.
Well, that makes sense. Yeah, but also makes sense why I wouldn't think of it. Star Wars is more my radar at that time than Lord of the Rings.
Number 2 was also neither Spider-Man nor Star Wars. But it was actually Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, I believe.
Dang, also not on my radar.
Or no, I'm sorry, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. So Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets was number 2. Spider-Man was actually number 3. And Star Wars Attack of the Clones was number 4.
Holy crap! Man, I can't believe Star Wars got pummeled that much.
I wouldn't say it was pummeled. It was a pretty close... The difference isn't too significant, but I mean, Spider-Man technically did have a higher worldwide box office haul than Star Wars Attack of the Clones.
Yeah, I guess that's fair, but man, I mean, that is sort of a surprise. I guess maybe there's a lot of lost goodwill from Phantom Menace, perhaps.
That's what that was my thought. But yeah, so just to kind of round out the top 10 there. So first is Lord of the Rings, Two Towers. Second is Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. Number 3 is Spider-Man. 4 is Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. Number 5 is Men in Black 2. Number 6 is Die Another Day. Number 7 is Signs, which was a Disney movie. 8 is Ice Age. That was one that my family loved in those days. Number 9 was My Big Fat Greek Wedding. I remember that movie being pretty popular in the early 2000s. And number 10 was Minority Report. So those were the top 10 grossing movies of 2002 by worldwide box office revenue.
Did you say Signs?
Yeah, Signs, yes. That was number 7.
A Disney movie?
Yeah, well, it says it was distributed by Disney.
It's a Disney movie?
Yeah, so...
Oh, okay.
A lot of sequels on that list.
That's a good movie, too, in my opinion.
Yeah. So.
Thanks for the American Top 10 countdown, Sean.
Yep, yeah. I mean, that's what I mean. I thought it'd be interesting to kind of look at... obviously, we all remember Spider-Man from those days, but there were a lot of other big movies in that year as well. And it's kind of surprising that... Because, I thought, too, until I saw this list, I thought that Star Wars would have been at the top, but it was actually number 4.
Hot dang. Yep, fooled me.
It's funny because neither you nor I were really interested in Harry Potter, but I know a lot of people were in those days. And I guess that's why it didn't register to you and me that
Yeah.
the Harry Potter movies
Again,
would be...
well, yeah, Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, not so much my radar
Nope,
back then.
not at all.
It was Star Wars that was like my big fandom at that point.
Yeah, same here. So like that's why I didn't think of Lord of the
As a
Rings
matter
either.
of fact, at the time, my mom got me, she picked up a science fiction magazine, Starlog, and the cover story was about Attack of the Clones. In the top corner, you also notice that Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin appears. But at the time, again, I was pretty afraid of Spider-Man. And so it's ironic now because of how much I love the Spider-Man movies. But my mother kindly went through and ripped out all the pages of this magazine involving Spider-Man or the Green Goblin so as not to scare me. And just left me the husk of this Starlog magazine for its Attack of the Clones content, which was really nice at the time. I mean, it was very thoughtful of her not to try to scare me like that. But now I wish I had the interview with Willem Dafoe.
A little bit of benevolent censorship never hurt anybody, right?
Well, all right. I guess we've determined that you're a little bit more brilliant than I am, Sean. Good going.
I will say though, I mean, my question was a little bit. I know you probably weren't expecting it, so I wouldn't say you're lazy, but I definitely...
that's the name of the game.
It's interesting to remember the other movies that were popular at the time, you know.
Well, so now we've touched on the video games, the Game Boy games that we were playing that night, and now why don't you continue us on that topic?
I'd be glad to. I would say that a lot of my exposure to Spider-Man, besides the movies, was the video games, and I remember when Spider-Man came out in 2002, my family had a GameCube. And at some point, I think it was for my birthday or maybe for Christmas, I got the Spider-Man movie video game, and that's why I loved on the DVD. They had the little bit of a tutorial about the first 3 levels for how to find how to beat them, where the secret areas were, how to get the bonus points, all of those things. So I remember spending a lot of time playing the Spider-Man 1 video game in those days, and I thought it was a lot of fun. I think overall I thought it was a pretty fun video game in its own right, and it was really cool to experience some of the iconic scenes of the movie.
A lot of great Bruce Campbell content.
Yeah, Yeah, he's in there as the narrator. Through the tutorial level, he's a lot of fun. There's some pretty cool bonus features. Like there's an alternative mode where if you get enough points, you can play as the Green Goblin, so you can unlock all of his weapons, his suit, the glider. It's a pretty fun game, and I definitely enjoyed that a lot. It was really cool to engage with the movie in that method, through that sort of means, I should say. And then I did the same thing with the second movie. I remember playing the second movie's game on the GameCube, 2004, 2005, and of course that game is pretty notable among Spider-Man video games because it was the very first one to have sort of that open world sandbox sort of style where like you're just swinging around New York City, you're kind of doing side quests in no particular order. I mean, there's a plot, but it's not as linear as the other game, and so you're kind of more free to focus on anything that you're particularly good at. So like if you like the infamous pizza delivery missions, you can do that. If you want to take pictures for the Bugle, that's an option. If you want to just explore the city and try to look for tokens, that's another thing you can do. There's like little rescue missions you can do. There's a lot of stuff you can do in the second video game. And I remember,
My balloon.
Yeah, the infamous balloon rescue missions. There were the sinking boat missions that a lot of people hated. And, they recreate some of the other iconic scenes from that movie as well. You kind of get to go to a lot of the scenes and a lot of the settings from the movie, which is really cool. And so I remember playing that game a lot as a kid. I really enjoyed the video games. They were so much fun, and they were just a really exciting way to engage with the movies and the plot. Make it feel like you're there, make it feel like you're really contributing to the victory, or to the to Spider-Man prevailing over his foes. They were just such a fun and such a big part of my video game playing as a child. And of course, I played the other Spider-Man games as well, not tied into the movies, like Spider-Man 2000 for the N64, which is a pretty fun game in its own right, and then also that Spider-Man 2 game for the Game Boy. So I guess overall, what I'm trying to say is I think the video games were huge. They were just a big part of my childhood, and they were a really fun way for me to engage with the movies. And I think that was just one of the many factors that really whetted my appetite for seeing these movies and seeing them over and over again. Just just feeling like I could be a part of the action, through my video game console there.
Yeah, for me, I don't think I had any of those games at the time. I mean, eventually I got Spider-Man 2, the video game. I still think I need to beat the Rhino.
I'm pretty sure that
as
Rhino...
As you've informed me, I'm fairly certain the first boss.
Yeah.
So I'm not too far in that, but I've swung around the city a lot. Had a lot of fun time doing that. In 2007, I did have the Spider-Man 3 Game Boy Advance game, which I loved. I think there's a little bit of a missing... There's a little bit of a gap these days, I think, for these, in your pocket, just pull out and play,
Yeah.
beat 'em up games like that. The power of Spider-Man in the palm of your hand, just easy to pick up and play a little bit of Spider-Man. And I think it gave you, for a handheld experience, I feel like that game gave you a really good Spider-Man experience
No, I would agree
on
100%. I
handheld.
think.
I had a lot of fun with that.
Oh, yeah. Like, I mean, those Game Boy games that you and I played, I know we both enjoyed them immensely, but I mean, part of it's just like, consoles have changed. I don't see as many people with handheld consoles. I mean, there's the Nintendo Switch, which is kind of a different thing altogether. So, I mean, I know that Game Boys just aren't really as big of a thing as they used to be for better or for worse. I mean, it's nice because you can have it on the go with you. You can have it in the car. You can play it on, if you're on a road trip or you're on an airplane, you can, take it with you. And yeah, you're right. It's kind of a shame that, people can't experience the movies in those ways, at least not firsthand. It's like you can always like buy an old Game Boy, you can buy old copies of the games.
I lament the loss of those video game tie-ins, for home consoles or handheld consoles. Like you say, it's just another interesting way to like really get in and engage, interact with the movie storyline in a new way that really puts you in the center of the action. I miss that.
No,
I miss that. I mean, they weren't always good, but when they were good, it was a really cool way to get involved. Now, another video game related memory I have of the time is a little bit more adjacent. I remember there being a number of Flash games for Spider-Man 3 at the time. I don't know if you remember ever playing any of those.
Not those games in particular. I mean, I remember Flash games pretty well, but I don't remember anything for Spider-Man 3, but I wouldn't be surprised if there were.
Sure.
If they did have those
sure,
kinds
like
of games
I remember there
out
were some games where like you picked powers to fight Venom with as Spider-Man.
That's interesting because what I like is like how like there's a little bit of strategy there. It's like you have to pick which powers you think will be best suited to beating Venom. So I think I like that aspect. I think it like makes you think a little bit more than just having the powers and using them. You actually have to be a little bit strategic about it.
Yeah, it was a sort of strategy, pick out what powers would be best against Venom, and then hop into the ring and face him.
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
Playing that a lot, enjoying that a lot. In addition to the one where you had to like climb up a building and like the villains of Spider-Man 3 would pop out the window and attack you. And I think they were actually both like video games for Hasbro action figures or something. Spider-Man 3 action figures.
Unfortunately, I wish I could have played the Spider-Man games, but I know Flash games, kind of have gone the way of the dodo bird. You just can't really find them anywhere these days.
Well, they might be saved somewhere.
That's
I know
true.
There's a Flashpoint project that sought to preserve a lot. Another one that I remember pretty vividly was there was this Spider-Man City Raid, and then there was like a Spider-Man 3 spin-off, Spider-Man Darkseid, which was, I think, mainly just like a reskinned version. And then thereafter, I saw the more legal, I suppose, like less copyright infringing counterpart to it, Shackle Man, which was the same thing, but instead of shooting webs, you're shooting like these chains. And the concept is like the screen keeps moving. I think this was fairly popular. The screen keeps moving and like you need to like press your mouse on where you want your webs to shoot. And it's sort of like a physics sort of game. Like, you swing and it yanks you. And there's like, it's sort of a maze too. You have to like, I got to get up there, got to get down there, and the screen's moving the whole time. And the idea is just to see how far you can web swing yourself.
That almost sounds like an arcade game. Like I don't remember playing that myself, but that's kind of the image that I'm getting in my head. It kind of reminds me of some of those arcade games I used to play.
Something like that. I think it was like a very formative Spider-Man Flash game, if you ask me.
Yeah, so a lot of good games that we had to play in those days. I mean, whether on console or on Flash, Game Boy. Yeah. So a lot of good stuff to choose from.
A lot of very cool tie-in games. Yeah, a lot of cool ancillary materials. There was a lot of merchandise surrounding the Spider-Man movies.
Oh, absolutely.
So, when we're talking about the merchandise, though, we can't escape talking about the toys.
Yes,
There's some very cool toys from the Spider-Man Raimi series.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I have some very fond memories of some of the toys I had around that time. Probably the one that I remember the most fondly and I remember the most vividly is my little action figure. It was like a 6-inch action figure of what they called Battle Ravaged Spider-Man. Now, they had a whole line of action figures for the different movies, but this was one from the first film. And they had, Battle Ravaged Spider-Man, and it was Spider-Man after he had gone through that final battle at the end of the movie against Goblin, where his mask is torn, he has a lot of rips in his suit, he just, you can see the blood on his face. I mean, they definitely really capture the essence of Tobey Maguire in that figure. It looks just like him, it's a spitting image, and they really capture, the beating that he took in that battle. I mean, the physical scars, I mean, you can just really see all that detail in there, and I always thought that was such a cool action figure. I don't remember, if I picked it out at the store, if somebody gave it to me for my birthday. I don't remember how I acquired it exactly, but I just remember I really played a lot with that. I had some other Spider-Man figures. I actually had like a Rhino action figure from some other unrelated Spider-Man setting, but I remember playing with them together a lot. I remember having another Spider-Man figure that my brother had from the second movie that shot webs, which was really cool. So those action figures were a lot of fun. I know I let my imagination run wild with them. And I think I actually also had like a little lizard figure too, like, the lizard from some other iteration of Spider-Man. So I remember he was part of the mix as well.
Yeah, I've heard about your battle ravaged Spider-Man before. I know you've brought that up. Well, it does sound like the pride of your collection.
It was just, I thought it was so cool that they actually like took the trouble to make a figure that was not in pristine condition. In other words, like you're not just getting a perfect looking Spider-Man, you're getting one that's actually, it was battle ravaged. Like it was different. It wasn't like every other action figure. It looks like they're perfect. They haven't suffered anything. But I thought it was really cool and distinctive that they made him, that he went through all of that combat with Green Goblin, which would have been just, we've all seen the movie. It's just brutal. All the injuries, all of the punches, just all of the abuse that he suffers in that battle. And they really, really captured the essence of that.
Yeah,
with
it does really put
figure.
you into the scene when it's that detailed.
It really
like
does.
That.
It was really neat. And that was just one of many action figures they had at the time from
because
that
I know
first
you've
movie.
mentioned before. That's part of what's so cool about toys.
Yeah.
Is that just like with the video games, it's a way to relive the movies with your imagination.
Exactly.
Create your own little world, go on your own adventures.
Yep.
Where you're only limited by your imagination. It's on the one hand, make no mistake, this is the corporate juggernaut.
Sure.
Raking in hand over fist, its cash off of us. But on the other hand, it really is. If you really care about the movies and the story that's being told, the toys, the games, the books, the soundtracks, they are really special ways to connect with the story in a new way, a new perspective.
Yeah, it was fun for us kids to have these figures to play with and use our own imaginations to recreate these battles and, pretend like we're part of the action.
Yeah, and I remember the Legos being a big part of it.
Segue to another toy that I had. You read my mind there, Peter, because I was just about to say that's a great segue to this other really cool Lego toy. I would say the other pride of my collection of Spider-Man toys at the time. It was this Lego set from the first movie. It was actually, it was really cool because it was like a set about the making of the movie. So it had like a little cameraman. It had a little director who looked a lot like Steven Spielberg with like the hat and the glasses, I remember.
Yeah, I remember that. Like before I knew Sam Raimi, I was like, oh, okay, I guess Steven Spielberg must have directed Spider-Man. Based on the Lego set.
Yeah, it's like I think they were trying to claim somewhat disingenuously. They were trying to claim that it was just some generic movie director, but we all know who it was. Lego can't fool us. But it was really neat because again, it was kind of a different take on on the typical toy. It was almost a subversion in a way. It wasn't just like a Lego set of that battle from the movie. It was like meant to be a Lego set of the filming of the scene in the movie between Spider-Man and Goblin where they battle each other at the World Unity Festival. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of cool that it's very meta. It gives you that like sense that you're filming the movie, not just reenacting the movie with yourself, but you're actually, reenacting the filming of the movie. It's distinct. It's like a little bit more nuanced, I think, than just a typical toy. And just the same thing with the Battle Ravaged Spider-Man. It's more nuanced. It gives you a more complete picture of what these characters are going through. They aren't going to look perfect all the time, especially if they just have been fighting this incredibly powerful supervillain for the last, number of minutes or whatever, like in a very bloody, gruesome, hand-to-hand combat battle. Mm-hmm. These are very nuanced toys, and I think they're actually more sophisticated than, they would first appear. Both of these toys were, now that I think about it right now, I think they were a bit more sophisticated because they were a more of a nuanced, more unusual take on some of these things from the movies. And I thought that was really cool.
That is an interesting angle to take with the Spider-Man set, to actually be filming the movie Spider-Man. So you could play with it as if it really was Spider-Man, or you could play with it as if it was...
As if you're filming Spider-Man.
Tobey Maguire, if you want.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like really cool that they give you that option.
That is a really interesting dimension.
Yeah, and it came with Mary Jane. It came with, as I mentioned, the Goblin and his glider. It came with Spider-Man. It actually had like a little rope that was meant to be his web when he was web swinging. So you could play, just reenact the plot, the scene from the movie there, which is fine. But you could also pretend that you're filming it and that you're the director and that you can change it up however you want so that it's different.
You can take it a little bit further.
Yeah. So I always thought that was really neat.
And that's really cool.
Yeah, that was a really fun toy, I remember.
Yeah, I never had any of the Spider-Man Lego sets myself, but I remember poring over the sets in Lego magazine and the Lego catalog I would get. I remember the Green Goblin looking very cool. I think the Mary Jane in that set, I seem to remember her having like a reversible, like smiling face and then like a damsel in distress, freaked out
She
face.
probably did. I remember it was like her in the red dress from the Unity Festival.
Yeah, and then I remember the Dr. Octopus figure looking very cool as well, with all the arms and everything attached to him.
Unfortunately, I don't remember that anything from the second movie, but that's pretty
really?
cool.
I remember from the time being like really enthralled with this Lego stop motion film that was, I suppose, produced through Lego. I remember watching it online at the time, and I recently rewatched it, and it's still very cool. It left quite an impression on me as a kid. It's still very impressive and very fun. You know, it's a stop motion film of Peter as Spider-Man squaring off against Dr. Octopus, and like it takes you through the different set pieces of the movie, you know, based on the different set pieces of the Lego sets. And it was called The Peril of Doc Ock by Spite Your Face Productions, for anyone wanting to check it out. And I remember that was a significant thing I saw as a kid. Like, wow, this is so cool. And it got me super excited for the Lego toys, which I'm sure was not entirely unintentional. But yeah, there were some of the coolest stuff for the Spider-Man movie, some of the coolest toys. I recall, you know, a Peter on his moped on his bike that shoots pizzas out of the back of it. I remember a J. Jonah Jameson action figure with real desk slamming action.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, they had so many action figures for these movies. I mean, you're right, that they would even have a J. Jonah Jameson where all he did is slam his fist on the desk. But, you know, that was just one of the collection. What can I say?
I still have, whether or not I should have it or not, I still have my Spider-Man 2 electric toothbrush, which I probably shouldn't have. I'm sure I've cleaned it with alcohol shortly after I finished using it. But I have it. I still have it because it was very cool. Even just, I don't think you get anything cool inside of cereal boxes anymore. I think now all you get is like a digital code to go online and do something or other. But I remember at the time, Pop-Tarts had these... for Spider-Man 2, they had like tentacle and web projectors. You know, like you would like strap it to your wrist, and you know, you press down your fingers like Spider-Man. It would send a projection of a web at the wall. I remember turning off all the lights and jumping all over the couches in the living room with that. And they had one that you wore on the top of your wrist too, and you would press the button, and it would send like a tentacle projection to the wall, which wasn't as cool, but still pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty nice for a box of Pop-Tarts.
Yeah. Hey everyone. This is Peter from the future, just swinging in to print a quick retraction. Before you go digging through mountains of old Pop-Tart boxes trying to find the Spidey Signals toys, it turns out they were actually prizes in Kellogg's cereal, such as Apple Jacks, Frosted Flakes, and Rice Krispies. Alright, back to the show. Yeah, of course, you know, we remember the web shooters, the water web shooters, and the silly string web shooters. Just some pretty cool toy tie-ins for the movie.
Exactly.
I only hope that the same amount of creativity was applied to the toys for the Webb and Watts, you know, Garfield and Holland Spider-Man movies.
Oh, for sure, for sure. I mean, I was just going to say that I remember I actually relatively recently, within the last year or two, I was watching some of the, you know, the commercials they had from the time for like some of these Spider-Man toys, like especially like the web shooters that were meant for more live action playing versus like, you know, with action figures or with video games. But yeah, I think it was great. Again, like what we keep saying over and over again, it's just these were a great way to generate enthusiasm about the movies, to really get kids excited about going to see them, dragging their parents to the movie theater. You know, they just really did a great job of making us feel like part of this world, this immersive world of Spider-Man and his villains. I mean, it's just amazing that what you can do when you allow someone's imagination to run wild, and these toys were great tools for doing that.
Thank the gods of capitalism for giving us so many merchandising and tie-in promotional products to bless us with all this nostalgia.
Amen. Amen to that.
What a time, yeah. I mean, even just the visual iconography of, you know, the merchandise stands out in my mind, you know, in my memories. Yeah, I'm nostalgic about, you know, just the look of it. Like, the franchise generally has this sort of like sunset orange sort of color that defines the marketing of it. I mean, you can see it on the DVDs and everything. But I remember more specifically for like the first Spider-Man, like a lot of the promotional materials were sort of like a darker hue. Like they focused on like this like extraordinarily like blue eye lens of his, you know, rather than like the more kind of silver or reflective lens that he has usually.
Yeah, it was like a very dark blue, and it was in this little box that would say official movie merchandise. And I remember seeing that on the video game carton, seeing that on the playing card, seeing that with the action figures. It was on just I mean, as it, you would expect, but yeah, like I remember seeing that all over the place, tying all of these different products together. They were all, part of this universe, coming out of the first movie.
Yeah, so like even that imagery has like a special place in my mind. There was like a certain mystique, like that feels like very early Raimi Spider-Man, very early in the legacy of the Raimi Spider-Man series.
It does. When I see that, it definitely takes me to the first movie, because I remember the second movie, the little official merchandise tab they had, I think it had his whole face. It wasn't just one eye. It wasn't just one of the eyes on his mask. I think it was his whole head.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, there was a little logo that said official movie merchandise, and a different little logo that said Spider-Man merchandising with like an alternative Spider-Man font, rather than like the PlayStation or like the Sheets font that you normally associate with the Spider-Man. It was like a different sort of font. But it's interesting too, because like I know I have some products from the Amazing Spider-Man that have that very same Spider-Man merchandising logo, which is a little odd, but I guess if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, I saw that on the when I got the game for the third movie, which was much more recent than when it came out. It had that same Spider-Man merchandise in addition to the official movie logo.
Yeah, it is a little odd. I mean, it's like the Columbia Pictures Spider-Man merchandise logo.
Yeah.
But I just remember seeing that. It felt like a strange crossover. What's this doing on this box?
Yeah.
Well, then when Spider-Man 3 came out, I mean, who would know that was going to be
the last one?
The end of the Raimi Spider-Man series for the foreseeable future. I mean, at the time, it just seemed like a big release, but like, you got the impression they would keep going. But by that time, though, I was absolutely obsessed. I went from someone who was afraid and trepid and sort of interested in this Spider-Man thing to being just head over heels for the series.
Which, I mean, that goes to show you that all this marketing worked perfectly in that it made you so excited and that it made you obsessed and that you were counting down the days till the movie came out. Like I think
I was literally counting down the days. I had printed out a poster of Spider-Man 3, the one with him with like his back to the wall and there's the reflection and everything. And I cut a little slit in the poster. And like I cut out like a small sliver of paper numbered like 1 to, I don't know, 50, whatever. And then I wrote like days until Spider-Man 3. And then like each day would sort of like move the sliver of paper
almost
to,
like you're
click down on the poster.
Almost like you're a prisoner, counting down the days left on their sentence, but you're just so excited that you just can't wait, and you're crossing off the days. I mean,
that's perhaps a little bit more of a darker spin on it, but yeah, something like that.
I guess that's what comes to mind. I mean, I'm not like in a bad way, but I just know like I mean that sometimes in life you're really anticipating something like, and you just cannot wait, and you're crossing off the days. I mean, I
was. I remember too. As part of the lead up to Spider-Man 3, Cartoon Network was doing a premiere of Spider-Man 1, and I vividly remember even just the commercials leading up to that, with, Optimus Prime's voice, Peter Cullen in the commercials saying, it's a web-slinging, crime-fighting, bad guy bashing, beautiful girl saving, Spidey spectacular. Like those words like echoed in my mind for years afterward. I don't know what it was, but I was just so... I was absorbing things about Spider-Man like a sponge at that point.
Well, I know on those days on Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon, every time they had some special presentation, they really, they went all out with the marketing, with the hype, with the promos. I mean, they, would play these commercials all week, just, enticing you, getting you ready to watch it. And like, it was an event. And it was something that you literally did. Like you would put it on the calendar and you would circle it. You would really look forward to it, all week or all month or however long you're, counting down the days.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly was for me. I marked the occasion of the Cartoon Network premiere by like organizing like a family party. Invited all my immediate relatives over, grandparents, aunts, to watch this premiere. I made the most disgusting cake you could ever imagine. You've heard of this story before.
I have, but it's a great story. I love this story.
Well, in my mind, I had such a cool image for what this Spider-Man 3 commemorative cake would be.
It's very creative.
Yeah, so like I baked a cake and I baked a bunch of brownies and I cut out the brownies and like stacked them as buildings over the cake for like the New York landscape. And then I had a bunch of marshmallows and I cut them up and like molded them into vague approximations as best as I could of Spider-Man and Venom and the the Sandman,
Mm-hmm.
and I colored them in with food dye and
That's
icing, and it
I
was
love that. That's what I
just
mean.
the weirdest, most
It's a great
disgusting
story.
thing, I guess. But like, ugh,
Well, no, but
it didn't look anything like it did in my mind.
but that's part of the fun, though.
I had
It's like
Twizzlers.
that's
I
part
like
of the fun.
iced Twizzlers over with like white icing and spread it around the
Yeah,
cake as if they were.
that's a really
like,
cool idea. That's
webbing.
like that again. That's all part of the fun, and you have such a great so much to tell about it. I mean, it's like such a great.
I do. Have
That's
so
such a
much
cool
to tell.
experience. That I honestly I think that like that level of passion just is so great that like these movies can generate that level of passion where like you're literally creating this out of cake. I mean, cake is a very difficult medium to work with. By the way, I mean I've watched Great British Bake Off a few times. I mean, cake is not easy to work with. I mean, if you're trying to sculpt something out of cake, it's tricky. So I definitely give you props for doing that. Back in 2007, as part of this build up to Spider-Man 3. That's
Well,
a really
thanks for giving me some leeway on that, Sean. Well,
hey,
I was just so invested for this. I also had this big ploy around the same time, the lead up to Spider-Man 3, to get my school to take us all to the theater to see Spider-Man 3 as a class, under the guise of being like a physics field trip. In fairness, I had a book at the time. Well, I still have it, called The Physics of Superheroes. And that was part of my inspiration. And I remember staying up at night, late at night, after doing my homework, working my way through the Spider-Man 2.1 DVD, trying to figure out, okay, like what can we use? I was putting together like an example of a test or a homework paper. Like, okay, so let's say Peter Parker weighs this many kilograms. If he swings into Doc Ock with this much speed, how much force is Doc Ock getting hit in the face with? That was the sort of thing I was trying to do. As an attempt to like tell my teacher, we should go see this movie.
Well, let's see. Force equals mass times acceleration.
Yeah, mass times acceleration, 9.8.
Negative 9.8 meters per second
I don't know,
squared. But yeah, I mean, I totally get where you're coming from. And frankly, it would have been appropriate because Peter Parker himself he's a physics major, is he not? In the Raimi movies, isn't he?
He's got the science award. That's as much as I know. In high school, he gets a science award. I don't know what he's actually studying. Something with science.
I'm pretty sure in the second and third movies, he's a physics major, I think. Because I think Dr. Connors is a physicist. Because remember, he says, I'm not a biologist, I'm a physicist when he's looking at the symbiote sample.
That's true. So it makes sense if he's studying under Connors.
I'm
it would
pretty
be
sure he's a physicist.
I suppose you're right. And of course, in Spider-Man 3, he also references some physics, talking about the
sound waves and propagating, yeah.
Right, how sound waves propagate. Yeah, so I suppose, he was a physics student. And I know my middle school teacher was, I know he was a huge Spider-Man fan. I know he was looking forward to the movie. I'm sure if he could have taken us, he would have. I know he told me like he had collected like the Secret Wars storyline and everything when it came out, which was the first appearance of the symbiote suit and everything. So I'm sure he would have taken us if he could have. But
yeah, I'll bet you his hands were tied by the system.
Probably.
Yeah.
I'm sure if we would have gone, that like every single one of those kids would have become physics majors. How could you not?
Yeah, it's like that's the
taking
trouble.
A Spider-Man 3 physics field trip.
It's so much more fun learning something when you're taking it purely from being a theoretical thing to making it into something you can envision and imagine and want to actually solve the problem.
So I think it would have been a legitimate learning experience, but also I was just like, let's see if we can get our school to take us all to see Spider-Man 3. So it was a noble attempt.
Absolutely. That would have been such a cool thing if they had done that. But even just trying to do that is pretty neat as well. Like, again, I don't think you're giving yourself enough credit there, Peter. I think that's a really cool, ploy to try to get your, class to go on this field trip that, you're seeing the movie and you're also, learning something along the way. And in fact, there was actually an episode of Recess about that very idea of like, one of the characters, TJ, he wanted to see this movie. And one of the things he tried to do was to try to get his class to go on a field trip by talking about like the physics or the chemistry or something involved with the movie there.
Really?
Yeah, there was an episode.
That was an episode of Recess?
Yes.
Maybe that's where I got the idea from.
Oh man, so there is so much to tell about nostalgia with these movies.
Well, we've had a lot of memories to walk through, Sean.
Absolutely.
There is so much to tell.
There really is.
We've had a lot of memories to walk through. And we've had fun. We've had a lot of fun strolling down our personal memory lanes. But here at the end of the path, we find ourselves at a crossroads, Sean. In a little game we like to call, We Are Who We Choose to Be.
Oh, I always love this game. These counterfactuals here. I always enjoy this.
All right, Sean. Well, I'm glad, because I've got a question for you, Sean.
Absolutely. Yeah, fire away.
Sean, would you rather re-experience all your Raimi Spider-Man memories, or have the Raimi Spider-Man saga have continued, unbroken, up to and including now?
Wow, that's an interesting question. So, would I still have my memories if the movies had continued? Like, in other words, would I still have like all the same nostalgia? It's just
yeah, you'll have your memories. So it's sort of a difference between we're pretty nostalgic fellows. We had a whole episode about our own nostalgia.
Mhm.
So would you rather get to re-experience, feel those vivid memories again, all over again, or have, in a sense, more memories, have them
Yeah.
continue on? I don't know, maybe if it would feel the same, if it would feel different if it had continued, like would we feel differently about it?
Here's the thing I would worry about if the Raimi movie series had continued. Because anytime you have a lot of sequels and they start to add up, inevitably one of them is going to be just the quality is not going to be what it once was. And I know a lot of people, with Star Wars, for example,
Well,
like they
some
don't.
would argue that already happened.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, look at the backlash that Phantom Menace got. Look at the backlash that.
I was thinking about Spider-Man 3.
Well, but that as well. But I guess I'm going to say that I would take the first option there. I'd rather that there were only 3 movies and that all this nostalgia happened during a very formative period of my life. If I had been older with these movies coming out, I just don't think the nostalgia would have been the same. I think it was the fact that we were kids,
Exactly,
and kids that were very susceptible and willing to engage with all of these other materials like the video games, the toys, Legos, playing cards, all this other merchandise. I think that's what really set it apart for us. And I think that's what really made it special. And so I wouldn't change any of that. I would definitely keep that the same way. And so I would definitely like to.
No, I think you're right. I think I have to agree with you, buddy.
I think I would pick the first option there. I think the fact that there were only 3 of them really made it special.
Yeah, I think so too. I would rather get to feel those memories vividly all over again from my past. And I mean, if we could just have gotten one more Spider-Man movie at the time, I think that would be great.
4.
But as it is, I would just take those old memories again, rather than have them keep going.
Absolutely. I would agree with that. I mean, definitely, I'm sorry that it ended the way it did because I know there was some behind the scenes drama with Spider-Man 4 and why that wasn't made. But at the same time, I'm glad that we had all these experiences during a very formative part of our lives. And, they really made such a strong impression on us. And it has sustained and impelled us to act and, feel these wonderful things all these years. So, okay. My question for you, Peter, is would you rather have front row tickets to Spider-Man in 2002 or front row tickets to The Phantom Menace in 1999, given the hype that had been building up to both of those movies? So in other words, would you rather, if you could go back in time and, without having any sort of preconceived notion of the movie other than the hype, if you could go back in time, which one would you rather do? Would you rather see Spider-Man with front row tickets in 2002 or Phantom Menace in 1999?
Well, as our dear viewers may have been able to extrapolate from how much of a scaredy cat I was about the Spider-Man movies, I also did not go to see any of the Star Wars movies when they came out, any of the prequel movies, despite how much I was fascinated by them.
In 1999, before that movie came out, there was so much hype. I mean, it was like one of the biggest stories in the country at the time. And likewise, I know there was a lot of hype and a lot of excitement for the Spider-Man movie. So that's why I hope this is a hard choice because I think.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, it's very similar. I mean, this isn't a Star Wars podcast, but I've got a lot of similar memories about the merchandise, the trailers.
That's what I mean.
Talking to kids in literally kindergarten about the Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
Boy. Man. That's a good question. Would I rather front row seats to the premiere of Phantom Menace or Spider-Man? Jeez Louise. Definitely at the time, I would probably have to say Phantom Menace because that's the one that was on my radar the most. Boy. I don't know. Those both would have been pretty incredible experiences because I should make it clear. I love the Phantom Menace. We both love the Phantom Menace.
I agree.
So that's what makes this a difficult decision here.
Well,
man.
Frankly, as much as I love Spider-Man, I feel like Phantom Menace was like, almost, I don't say like it was an historic event, but it's like, I mean, just boy, like, I mean, I don't think there's ever been more hype for a movie coming out than there was for that movie in 1999. I mean, just that there had been 16 years since the last Star Wars movie. People were just so excited about it. I mean, it was just like a real cultural event. As much as Spider-Man is beloved to this day, I think the Star Wars movie was the bigger cinematic and historical event. So I think I would probably choose that one, just to be, I think I would choose that.
You know what?
It's such a big event. It's such a big deal.
I mean,
how could you not be a part of that?
Well, in addition to that, if I had to choose between the two of them, I think Phantom Menace just has like a much bigger canvas, more in its palette that it paints with. Like I would rather see those vistas, those images on the big screen.
That's fair.
They're it's a little bit more of a spectacle movie, even more than Spider-Man.
Exactly.
So, dang it, Sean. That was a hard question.
I know.
That was brutal. That was very difficult.
That's what I mean. That's the point of the game, Peter. You never know when some lunatic's going to come along with a sadistic choice.
Tell me about it.
What can I say? That's about as sadistic of a choice as it gets. I mean, it's
I mean,
funny
if I could do both, I'd absolutely do both.
Nope, that's not how the game works, my good man.
Well,
Oh, I know we could debate this all day.
I mean, Star Wars, Spider-Man, they both carry a lot of nostalgia for us.
Exactly.
I think it's time we send it off to our listeners at home.
Absolutely. Well, everybody, thank you so much for joining us as we reminisced and relive some very fond memories of our experiences with the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies.
We encourage everyone out there to share some of your favorite memories with the series with us. Just take 2 buses and a cab to our Twitter at SMTT Podcast. That's SMTT, as in So Much to Tell Podcast.
Whether you've been following the series since James Cameron was attached back in the 90s, or whether you just became a fan recently, or you just discovered it for the first time yesterday. I mean, whenever you discovered these movies, we'd love to hear about your memories of them, your impressions of them.
Yeah, I mean, there's never a bad time to become a Raimi Spider-Man fan.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Could not agree more. And of course, we'd love to just hear all of your thoughts and comments as well. And if you're able, consider joining us on Patreon to help us make this show. Right now, all we got is this 20 for the rest of the week.
So until next time,
Godspeed, Spider fans. There we go.
Good times.